guys, so I actually have you on, you're sitting at the edge of my bed, and so if the camera's swaying a little bit, it's because if I move, you kind of move. But all right, let's go ahead and get started. I am doing my very first reaction video. This is a series I'm hoping to implement into this vlog channel once a week. I don't know if we're gonna do that right off the bat, but the goal is for it to be once a week, every Friday. Now, I've already filmed this video. This is the second time I'm filming it. I even edited the first video, did all of that work, and then I watched another YouTuber's account of who we're going to be discussing today, and I realized I really wanted to refilm. So let's go ahead and talk about this series and what the purpose is, and then we're going to get into the whole case. So the purpose of this series is I really love Kendall Rae's channel. She's like a true crime conspiracy channel, and I'll link her down below, as well as Bella Fiori. I'll link her down below as well. I believe she's Australian. I'm not entirely sure. But originally, I wanted this series to be me reacting to some of Kendall's videos because I love her videos so much. I just noticed that in some of her videos, there were things that just were never mentioned, and also Kendall doesn't always say what she thinks happens. She kind of gives a general idea, but I've never really heard her just concrete say this is exactly what I think, and I would just love to know like what she thinks. I feel the same about Bella Fiori. However, Bella actually does say what she thinks is happens to like a missing persons or just a crime case if they're not solved. So I'm actually going to link Bella's channel down below as well. I probably already said that, but I watched, so basically that's what I'm going to do here. I am going to do a reaction off of their videos. So not doing any sort of research myself outside of their videos. So this is just a pure reaction to watching theirs and then providing my feedback on what I think happened in these crime videos. So if that is of interest to you, then keep on watching. But if you watch all of my other content and this just isn't up your alley, that's totally okay. You can click out, and this is just like a once a week thing. I will say that this does kind of conflict with my personality because I don't like sad stuff. I'm more of the mind where I would rather be doing positive, uplifting, happy things. I don't even like to watch Lion King because it makes me cry. But I just find this stuff so interesting that I just had this strong feeling to just do this. So let's go ahead and get started, and today's video is going to actually be a combination of reacting to Kendall's video and Bella because they both did a video on Jennifer Kesse.
The disappearance of Jennifer Kesse, and this case is insane because it's like she literally just vanished off of the face of the earth. Like, I'm not gonna give it away.
So this is Jennifer Joyce Kesse. She was born on May 20th of 1981, and she grew up in Tampa, Florida. And her parents describe her as someone who was extremely well-liked and also really, really smart. She was speaking in sentences at only a year old.
So I am not going to rehash everything that they rehashed because I'll link those videos down below as well. Not just their channels, but the video that I'm reacting to. And also on Instagram, I am letting you guys know ahead of time what video I will be reviewing on Fridays, and that way it gives you guys time to go watch that video before you come to mine, because then if you come to mine, it might be very confusing because again, I'm not going to rehash every single detail. The purpose is for me to just kind of tell you guys what I think happened to this person. So let's go ahead and get started. This case again is on Jennifer Kesse. She went missing in 2006 from like the Tampa, Orlando, I think it was Orlando area. And it's a very frustrating, just mind-blowing How does somebody just honest to God disappear into thin air and just nothing? And not only that, but there's camera footage, and definitely go watch both of their channels on this video because they both show like the footage and stuff. And Bella's video, I feel like if I had to compare, Bella's was more in depth, and she even showed pictures of Jennifer's apartment. Anyway, so of the inside. Anyway, it's a very frustrating case, and let's go ahead and get into it. Gonna assume that you guys already watched the video and that you know, but I'll go ahead and give you a quick little summary. Jennifer Kesse went on vacation the weekend before she went missing with her, at the time, boyfriend. They went to St. Croix, and I believe that's like Virgin Islands, if my memory serves me correctly. And when she came back, she went to work on Monday, and then after that night, that was the last anyone had ever heard of her, and she basically just disappeared into thin air. And then the next day, or the day of that she was reported missing, her car was found a mile away from her apartment complex. And the general consensus and theories from others I think the most highly believed one is that the construction workers in her apartment complex had something to do with her disappearance. However, I'm not of that same thought. So let's go ahead and get into, I hope that was a good general brief summary of what Kendall's and Bella's videos all about. So we are going to focus on the four main theories, honestly, that I think could have happened to Jennifer, based off of everything that came from Bella and Kendall's video. So it could have been the construction workers, it could have been her at the time boyfriend, it could have been her ex-boyfriend, and it could have been a coworker. Those are the four things that we're going to talk about, and I'm going to rank them in order of what I think is most likely and least likely. I'm going to go ahead and actually run through a couple of the key evidence details and my thoughts on them, and then actually, you know what, let me go ahead and rate what I think most likely, least likely. I think the fourth least likely person to have been involved in her disappearance is her at that time current boyfriend. His name was Rob. He was ultimately actually cleared by the police. That's not to say that he didn't have something to do with it, but he did live, they had a long distance relationship, and he lived in the Miami-ish area, or Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, and she lived high up more north in Orlando. So she was like a 2-3-ish hour drive from his house. And they had gone on vacation together, I think Thursday, the January 19th. I'm not entirely sure. I had to look at a January calendar in 2006, but she drove down to the Miami area because she was to meet up with Rob, and they were flying out together to St. Croix. So let's remember this, because this could also be a fifth option, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then she returned back, and I don't know when she came home, but according to Kendall's video, she came home back to Miami because they flew back into Miami, and she stayed with Rob, kind of chilled out, and then the next day she drove home. So I have no idea. That would mean they had to have come back maybe Saturday, and then she drove home Sunday, because she went to work on Monday, according to Bella's video. So that would mean that this all happened Tuesday. If she went to work on Monday, then this would mean that Tuesday, the day she never went into work, was the day she was reported missing. So Rob was cleared. because they pulled phone records. He had an alibi. He was in Fort Lauderdale, wherever he lived. He was not in Jennifer's area at the time of her disappearance, so it couldn't have been him. She did call him the night before, and phone records showed that he was in Fort Lauderdale, and they did have an argument. So whenever someone goes missing, things like that are always going to be a red flag. Things that in everyday life aren't a big deal, but when someone goes missing, any kind of argument is going to be a big deal. But so the night before she went missing, she had gone to work, she'd come home, and she lived a very very routine lifestyle. She came home, called her parents. After her parents, she did talk to her brother, who mentioned a cell phone was left, and we'll talk about that in a minute, at her condo. And it was his friend's cell phone, and she was like, sure, I'm gonna ship it. And then after she got off the phone with her parents and her brother, she called her best friend. And in that conversation with her best friend, she was kind of down and talking about how the long distance thing was hitting her. And then after that, she talked to Rob, and they had an argument, which, kind of makes sense. Whenever you just, talk to your best friend, you always feel some kind of way, and then that sometimes can go into your relationship. Whenever you hear yourself talking about it, or someone else gives you advice, you then go to your significant other, and sometimes it leads to little arguments. So that could be just very, very normal, but unfortunately just coincidental that she unfortunately disappears the next day. So I don't think Rob honestly had anything to do with it, because other than that little argument, the whole family suggested that they had a very healthy relationship. The whole family really liked him, and blah, blah, blah. Now, back to Logan, who's her brother. Him and his family, him and her parents also lived far away. They lived like 2 hours away from Jennifer. I don't know where necessarily. Maybe they lived in the same area as Rob. I'm not really sure, you guys. Maybe they were in Tampa and she was in Orlando. But Logan lived with his parents, and while her and Rob were at St. Croix, he asked if him and his friends could stay in her condo, and she said yes. And the crazy thing is, one of the people that stayed with Logan was Jennifer's ex-boyfriend. So I guess maybe her ex-boyfriend is Logan's friend. So that was kind of awkward. And it's really hard for me to rank him. I don't know if I want to rank him third or if I want to rank him second. And we'll talk about that in a second. So the ex-boyfriend for me comes in at either number 3 or number 2. I feel like 2 and 3 are tied together. And his name was Matt, and he was seen at the Blue Martini, which was a bar not too far from Jennifer's house, the night before her disappearance. So that also can't just be passed up. The police did investigate him thoroughly. They really honed in on him, and because apparently he still couldn't get over Jennifer, still wanted to get back with her, and was said to be very much in love with her. So he kind of has a motive. And you just can't, you can't ignore that. The thing that was not mentioned in any of their videos that I wanted to know is, if Logan lived far away, did that mean Matt also lived far away? When did Logan go home? Why was Matt so close to Jennifer's house? Did he live in the area? Did he live in Orlando? Did he have a reason to have to drive 2 hours away like Logan did? And Logan's other friend Travis, who was the one who left his cell phone at Jennifer's house. We'll talk about that. But I want to know about this boyfriend, this ex-boyfriend. Did he live in the area? If he didn't live in the area, that's sketch. That's just way too red flag for me. Why would you have not gone home and then you're going to a bar close to a girl who just went missing directly after? So that's really weird. And then just so let's assume maybe he did live in Orlando. My next question is, well, how often does he visit that bar? Is that a normal thing for him? Is it not normal? Because all of these things that are happening straight prior to her disappearing, are clues to this puzzle. So I don't know the answer to this question, unfortunately, which kind of puts him again in that number 2, number 3 tied spot for me. But we'll get back to the ex-boyfriend in a minute. All right, at number 2 or 3 again, I think is the construction workers. That's why I feel like my video or my opinion is going to vary differently from some, because the biggest theory in all of this is that the construction workers had something to do with this. Bella said in her video herself that she also really believes that they were, in her mind, 100% at the cause for this. So I just feel like looking at all of the evidence, and we're going to talk about that next, all of the little things, it's so difficult to believe that it was the construction workers, but not difficult because they are kind of up there with number 1. You know what, so now you know, number 2 or number 3 tied spot with the ex-boyfriend, and you're gonna see why I've tied the ex-boyfriend with the construction worker when I talk about all the evidence. Now, at number 1 on who I think had everything to do with Jennifer's disappearance is a coworker. So, y'all, I don't know how no one's talking about this more, because to me it's just insane. Now, there was this coworker who repeatedly asked her out, and she told him no, like the very first time, and she told him, I don't date coworkers. You would think that that would be like the end of it, and you would respect those boundaries, and you would think, well, that's how she feels, like I can't change that, and you would just move on. But no, repeatedly asked her out, and from Kendall's account, he got upset when she would deny him and reject him. My question on that is, how did you know he was upset? Did other coworkers witness this rejection? When he was upset, what reaction or action would suggest he was upset? Did he yell? Did he take it out on her? Was he rude and mean to her? That information was not provided in either of the videos. And actually, Kendall focused more on the coworker than Bella did. So, but she did mention some other things that Kendall didn't about it. So anyway, so this coworker, okay, was late to work the morning of her disappearance. All right, was late to work and had gotten a speeding ticket. Number 2, late to work, got a speeding ticket, and then when it was reported at work that she went missing, he had said she's probably been eaten by gators by now. She's probably been eaten by gators by now, or whatever. Okay? Who says that? In my mind, and you know, I don't know every single human mind that's out there, but if someone were to go missing at my job or just wherever, even if you don't like that person, why would that be what you would say? That to me is just insanely cruel, mean, unnecessary. It says a lot about this person's character, by the way, because there's zero sympathy at all in that statement. And it was enough for the coworkers to have called the cops to report it. And that's my other thing. You know, when you go to work and you have your coworkers that you deal with, if coworkers thought it was enough of a red flag to call the cops and be like, this person just said this, what does that say about how the coworkers feel about this guy? Because let's say you just had, you know, let me just say this, everyone reacts to things in a different way. People grieve. Sometimes I do like a nervous laugh when I'm just nervous or scared. That doesn't mean things are funny. So let's just say, you know, someone's reaction was to unfortunately just say something that just, dude, not the best time to say something like that, you know? But I feel like coworkers know each other pretty well in general. You spend a lot of your time with coworkers, and for them to still have thought, we need to tell the police this, I'm sorry. Because let's just say he was a nice guy. Let's just say he was just a nice general, just nice guy, but unfortunately he just said something not the greatest thing on the planet to say. You know, most coworkers would have been like, wow, I was kind of out there. But, you know, you move on because you know that person's general true character. These coworkers call the cops on him, okay? So that to me suggests that he was perceived enough to, it wouldn't be far-fetched maybe in their minds that he had something to do with it, which is why they reported it in the first place. However, the police cleared him because his alibi was that he got a speeding ticket. Just because and that's the other problem I have. How is that an alibi? Because getting a speeding ticket takes what? 15 minutes? I don't know, max 30 minutes? I don't know, you tell me how long, if you've ever gotten a speeding ticket, how long it takes for the cop to come out, get your license, get your things, give you the ticket. How is that an alibi? An alibi would honestly suggest that at the time that this person had disappeared, you were somewhere else. They didn't know when Jennifer disappeared. All they knew was that the last time she had talked to Rob, her phone had powered down. My camera, I had to restart this clip. All they knew was that Jennifer had powered down her phone after she talked to Rob, and then somewhere between that time and the next morning when she never made it to work, she was gone. Okay, where was he before the ticket? Why was he speeding? Where was he speeding from? You know, was it his normal work route? Was he found speeding on like his everyday normal work route? Maybe those things were answered, but they were not provided in Kendall or Bella's video. So again, just want to point out that I'm reacting to their video, not necessarily to research I've done myself of the actual case outside of a YouTube video. So I just feel like that is way too red flag to me. Way too damn red flag. Why did you need to be speeding? And in my opinion, he was speeding because he knew he needed to get out to work on time to prove his alibi. That's my thought. That's what I think. That may not be the case. Okay, and then proceeds to get to work, and his response to her disappearance is, she's been eaten by gators by now. Yeah, well, probably if you had something to do with it, and we all know how Florida is. So that's crazy. Now, here is the other piece of there's more evidence to this, and we're going to discuss it again. And we're going to come back to the construction workers and the fifth option I mentioned earlier, this little mystery lead that I feel like maybe no one's looked into quite yet. But a couple years later, after her disappearance, a coworker, so this guy, I guess, still still works. I don't even know what his name is, or I would tell you what his name is. He's still, I guess, working at the same place, but then fast forward a couple years, another coworker files a police report or like a restraining order or something on him and mentions Jennifer to the cops or in his restraining order or something, and suggested that he had something to do with Jennifer Kesey's disappearance, and something along the lines of he didn't want to happen to him what happened to Jennifer, and suggesting that this crazy coworker was going to do to him what he did to Jennifer. So why is that not being looked at? Like, what? Why? I mean, this family is still very actively on this case. I did look up one other YouTube video, and let's go ahead and talk about that fifth element, and then we're going to come back around and talk about all the other evidence that I feel points to one, the coworker and the ex-boyfriend. So the fifth thing is, I was watching this video because it just popped up, you know, on my recommendation feed, and it was a video that was posted in 2018, but I think it was Orlando news footage from 2016, because in the video they said 10 years to the date, 2006 plus 10 is 2016, even though the video was posted in 2018. Not to confuse you, I'm sorry. But in this video, the news reporter was in front of the Orlando Police Department talking about a new tip that had come in on Jennifer's case. And the tip was that someone said they spotted Jennifer, and I'm not going to say this right, in Biscayne Bay in Miami. But this tip didn't pan out, but they did follow up this lead. And here is my thing. If this tip is true, let's connect the dots for a second. This was in Miami. Jennifer, prior to her disappearance, and here's the thing, you guys. Everything that happened prior to Jennifer's disappearance is the reason she went missing, in my opinion, okay? So she travels down to Miami to Rob's so that they can get on a plane from there to head over to St. Croix. What if, when she went to Miami, someone spotted her and knew that they were going to take her, to abduct her? I'm just trying to connect the dots here. That could be a thing with sex trafficking. It's very unfortunate, but there are things like catalogs, you guys. Things of what people are looking for. I'm looking for this type of person, and offering money. And someone could have spotted Jennifer. She could have been on a wanted kind of catalog description. And the other thing is that she had a damp towel in her bathroom, and her house did not have any sign of forced entry. No sign of forced entry. Everything in her house was completely normal. Just 100% normal. She had a can of pepper spray on her counter, and she had clothes laid out on her bed as if she was like picking out her work clothes, but she was gone, obviously, and her purse, her car keys, her cell phone, and Travis's cell phone were gone. And Bella also mentioned a briefcase. So if there really was a briefcase, that's a huge clue for me personally to support the coworker or the ex-boyfriend. And I'll talk about why in a second. All right, now let's talk about her car. When basically the boss, when she never showed up to work that Tuesday, the boss found it very odd because, again, she was a routine person. It was completely out of her character, and he immediately tries calling her, goes straight to voicemail because it's powered down, and he calls her parents. Her parents immediately had the same feeling. Her mom was in an emotional state. She calls Logan. I don't know if Logan was still in the area. I'm really confused. I don't know. I don't think so. Logan was home because he had talked to her the night before. I guess she calls Logan. Logan takes off and drives the 2 hours. Yeah, that's right. Logan takes off, drives the 2 hours to her house before her parents, and her parents are like following, or not too far behind. They're like 15-20 minutes behind him. And he didn't have a spare key, and then her parents show up. They have the key. Oh, in the meantime, her parents have called the apartment complex. While Logan is also on his way driving. He hasn't reached there yet. They call the apartment complex and ask if her car's there, and they say that her car's not there. And when Logan gets there, sure enough, her car is not there. It was not in her usual parking spot. It was gone. And then, like I mentioned, they come into the apartment. Everything looks the same. Her pepper spray's on the counter, which I think is a huge clue. Huge. But her purse, those 2 phones, and her briefcase was not there. And then a couple days later, they got a lead that her car was found a mile away from her apartment complex, and it was found at another nearby apartment complex. And there's actually surveillance footage of her car pulling up into this apartment complex. According to Bella, the person sits in the car for 32 seconds and then gets up, leaves, walks away, and never looks back. And this person is suggested as the luckiest person of interest because not once was their face in the camera frame. Oh my God, they even had NASA try to improve the frame and they just couldn't make it out. Police say that they can't even tell if it's a male or a female. I 100% think it's a male. I think it's a male by the jeans or the pants. I think it's a male by the shoes, and go watch their video so you can see that footage. And I just think that the shirt, the way the shirt is, the cut of it, the cut of everything, it just looks like a man to me. Right now, they're in the process of re-examining her car to get new results and new clues. They're using her car to, and the police report, they're like, we really think that there's going to be a huge clue to her disappearance from this car. So, want to point that out. This video also showed a progression of what Jennifer would look like today, 9 years later, or according to that, it was 9 years later, but it's been more than 9 years now. My only thing with these progression things, why do they make them look like themselves? I feel like they should not only post a photo of a true regression, meaning assuming they still had blonde hair, right? But they should also post a picture of what they would look like with brown hair, short black hair. I know that's a lot of work, but you guys, most likely they're not, if she's alive, they're probably not trying to keep Jennifer looking like Jennifer. You know what I'm saying? They're probably keeping her hair very different, colored a different way, and people look completely different and other hairstyles, like completely different. So I just feel like that's something that the law, or this whole thing when it comes to missing people, at least give us other pictures of what they would look like with different hair, different lengths, different styles if possible. At least like hair color choices, you know what I'm saying? Now they brought in like the sniffer dogs, and there was a dog and he traced her scent. They brought him to her car where her car was found at this random apartment complex, and he traced her scent all the way back directly to her apartment complex. Like, that's where the dog literally took them. And he didn't even take them up the stairs to her condo, because I guess she was on like the 2nd floor or something, I don't know. But he didn't even go up the stairs. He stopped at the bottom of the stairs, but directly at her condo unit, and also trailed the spot of where her car was parked. Her car had no signs of forced entry, no robbery, no one took anything. That was the other thing about her apartment complex, is there's no sign of forced entry. And I believe her parents had to have opened the door because Logan got there before him. Logan got to her apartment before his parents, and he didn't get into the apartment. He had to wait for them to show up. So that would suggest that her apartment had been locked, which would suggest that Jennifer, in my opinion, that this had to have happened the morning of. I don't think this happened in the middle of the night. At first, the first time that I filmed this, I thought something happened to her in the middle of the night. But that's why I'm refilming this, because I'm seeing things from a different perspective, and I feel like something happened to her that morning of. She had taken a shower. That's why the towel was still damp. Her clothes were laid out. According to Bella, she had several skirts, and like she was making, you know, outfit options for work like we all do. And she obviously maybe made her choice and was wearing her intended outfit for the day. She grabs her purse, she grabs her phone, she grabs Travis's phone, unless Travis's phone was already in her purse because she knew she needed to go ship it off. So it may have just been with her already. But her pepper spray was left behind, and that to me is a huge clue, and why I think that a coworker or her ex-boyfriend may be more suspects than we believe. I feel like the other thing is there was no signs of forced entry in her car. So let's assume she gets up, she takes a shower, she gets dressed for work, she grabs her purse, she grabs her car keys, she grabs her briefcase, suggesting she is going to work. She leaves her apartment complex, closes the door, gets to her car, because she obviously made it that far because the dog had sniffed in that spot, so he knew she had made it to her car. But there was no signs of forced entry. So it's very unlikely, you guys, that whoever took her or killed her did it after she left the complex. Like, let's say she stopped at a stop sign, someone just jumped in. I don't think that happened. I think she was with the person when she was walking to her car. And that's why I also tied the construction workers at number 2 or 3 with the ex-boyfriend. She either had to have known the person, or someone was in her apartment complex like the construction workers, which is why I understand why a lot of people feel like this is the number 1 theory. But for me, the reason why I put her coworker at number 1 is I just feel like she knew this person. That's why she left without her pepper spray. She is dressed ready to go to work. She gets in her car, and then there's nothing. This is broad daylight as well. If this theory is correct, that's the other thing I want to point out. So I just feel like for a construction worker to do something in broad daylight with no signs of forced entry, that's not to say there wasn't some type of force. Maybe she gets in the car, and before she has a chance to lock the doors, maybe someone gets in, immediately points a gun at her. That could very well be something that happened to her. I just feel like she knew the person. And here's my back end theory on why I'm so targeting this coworker, because she rejects him multiple times. It was said that he got upset. He was late to work. He got a speeding ticket. He said she's been eaten by gators by now. And let's talk about a motive. She wasn't at work that Thursday and Friday prior to. She was on vacation with her boyfriend. And when you go on vacation, most of the time, most coworkers know where you're going, what you're doing, because you talk about it. You know, you talk about your life and things and such. And maybe he just went over the edge, you guys. And this is why, this whole thing is why I want to do this series. No one mentions how maybe important it is, the fact that she went on this vacation with her boyfriend. And like I mentioned, everything that someone does, the week, the days, the week, and even maybe months leading up are so crucially important to what happens to somebody. And I think that it shouldn't be dismissed that she went on vacation with her boyfriend, which could have triggered the coworker and could have triggered her ex. Her ex spends time in her apartment complex thinking she's off with another guy right now, and then he's at a Blue Martini down the street. I'm just saying, like, this could be what triggered these people, these men, to, or one of the other, to have been angry or jealous, resentful, and maybe they snapped. I don't know. Here's my thing. If their intent was to abduct her, because Bella suggests that because she was on so much of a routine that the construction workers it would have been easy to spot her, what she was doing a mile away. She suggested they would know when she leaves for work every day, when she comes home every day, because she was on such a routine, and it would make it that much easier for someone to take her. Here's my thing where it just puts the construction workers a little further down for me, and why it amps up someone she knows, like the coworker and her ex-boyfriend. Why risk taking her car? From a construction worker standpoint, right? Why risk? And how would they have known that was her car unless they were watching her? But I'm just like, why risk taking her car to abduct her? That's just more evidence, right? You're putting your fingerprints, your DNA on something else. I just feel like that's not a high enough percentage to fault the construction workers. But I just want to point that out, that she had gotten into her car. The dog sniffed her there. She got into her car. Whether or not she left and drove her car out of her complex is to be known. She definitely, in my opinion, got in her car, and then either she drove out with who she knew, coworker or her ex-boyfriend, and something happened to her, and then they took her car and dropped it off in some random place to make it look like something else happened that was complete opposite of what actually happened. Or she got in her car and then somebody else quickly got in and maybe transported her to another vehicle somewhere else, which is why the dog maybe never picked up her scent. So I just want to point that out, that I think from a construction worker standpoint, that's really risky, taking her car and in putting yourself in her vehicle. Really risky. So anyway, I feel like I've pretty much covered everything. This is probably gonna be a super long video. I'm not gonna say, I usually say I hope you guys enjoyed it, but there's no joy out of any of this. And in this video that I watched about the news conference, her parents are in it, and the dad says something that he was like, no one deserves to be taken and not be found. He's like, not for the families, but for themselves. No one deserves to not be found. And that, that's so true. Jennifer deserves to be found. Her parents deserve closure. And it appalls me that people would take other people's lives into their own hands when it doesn't belong to them. I've never understood this, and I pray for her family. I pray for Jennifer, and I'm just very sorry to everyone, to Jennifer. This is truly sickening. But now you guys know my thoughts on what I think. You're welcome to comment down below. Let me know what you think. Thumbs up if you like the series. Please, it helps me to kind of gauge what you guys are interested in my channel. I definitely don't want to do so many different styles of videos that, I just kind of like lose your interest. So let me know what you think. And that's it for today. Bye, guys.